Thank you, Ibrahim, for the nice introduction. Assalamualaikum and a very good morning. Selamat pagi, Tauan, Kalai Vanakkam to all that are present today. Salam sejahtera from all of us in FIMM. First of all, I would like to thank all of you that have been with us for the last 5 days, and today mark the final day of FIMMAC 2021. As the saying goes, the early bird catches the worm, and we are here today to talk on a subject that is very close to our daily life. This is even more so, especially during pandemic where communication has gone almost virtual. I am sure all of us would have at least one of these accounts, be Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Telegram, WhatsApp, you name it. While these platforms come in handy to check on various status of our friends and families, it can also be used as a tool for businesses to create strong brand presence, increase visibility, attract new customers, as well as enhance the relationship with your existing clients. Used correctly, it can be a powerful tool for marketing, expand your communication reach, as well as to improve customer engagement or customer experience. The use of social media is not just confined to unit trust and private retirement scheme. It is also included for other regulated activities as well. Hopefully, you will find some key takeaways from this discussion as shown in the slides, and be mindful when using social media for your business, especially for consultants and for the general public at large, to watch out on the legitimacy of any financial products that are circulated in the social media platform. We can see that from yesterday's conversation, there were a lot of interest in relation to social media platform. So today is our job to unearth a lot of your queries or your questions in relation to social media. We are lucky today to have 3 esteemed panelists who are willing to share their experiences in managing and surveilling the marketing and distribution on social media. Well, I would like to call all my 3 panelists as Robocop in the cyborg world. With that, it gives me a great pleasure to welcome and introduce our panelists for this session. Puan Saffinaz, currently she is the head of supervision in FIMM. She has more than 10 years of experience in supervising the capital market and auditing the auditors of public entities during her tenure with the SC and Audit Oversight Board. She was also an auditor with one of the big 4 firms previously. The second panelist, Encik Shahrin, who is a very seasoned player in the industry. As I mentioned earlier, he is the Chief Compliance, Risk and Legal Officer of Affin Hwang Affin Hwang Asset Management. He has more than 25 years of experience in fund management, unit trust, compliance, risk and legal matters, as well as capital market regulations during his tenure with the SC and Capital Market Authority of Saudi Arabia. Last but not least, we have Puan Zaharah Abdul Muttalib, another seasoned player in the industry. She is currently the head of wealth management at Bank Islam. With her, she has 23 years of experience in private banking, wealth management, and corporate advisory sector. She used to work at various financial institutions, just to name a few, for example, Hong Leong, Standard Chartered, CIMB, UOB, OCBC, etc. I would like to start the discussion for today by quoting the SC's Capital Market Master Plan 3, CMP3, that talks about the great technology and digital acceleration. To be exact, on page 37, this is what it says. To keep abreast with the industry, global regulators have started to adopt greater use of technology to improve oversight, surveillance and analytical capabilities, as well as support forward-looking supervision and policy making. Along with this, regulators have initiated with the forward-looking regulatory technology, also known as RegTech, to improve compliance outcomes, strengthen reporting, and better manage key risks for the overall greater efficiency. CMP3 further states one of the key regulatory thrusts is to embrace digital age with the industry as they navigate through RegTech and emerging technology. The impact of COVID-19 on members and distributors as well as consultants, shows that there is a need for the digitalization agenda. Based on FIMM supervision and surveillance activities, we note there are quite a number of consultants have started or beginning to start marketing their activities on the various social media platforms. I also would like to share some key observations from FIMM's Investment Management Survey, FIMM survey, that was issued to the industry early this month, where it was noted that 70 respondents, or out of 70 respondents or companies, they have actually mentioned 41% of the respondents actually expressed concern about their over-reliance on face-to-face selling method and manual operation. Well, the social media platform was indeed being used by consultants as an improvised way to market their products offered by their principal. Another interesting observation, 40% of the respondents indicated their concerns over the lack of digitalization agenda for their customers and the lower sales performance. You can read more about our IM survey on FIMM's website. So we can see that from this finding that businesses need to evolve and adapt under the current environment. If I may say, COVID-19 is really a blessing in disguise, which resulted in a lot of companies having to embark on the transformation journey for survival. While businesses are getting more creative in the way that they acquire new clients or expand the outreach, social media platform definitely one of the tools that our consultants could engage in. But be mindful on the double-edged sword of the social media. On one hand, you can capitalize it for better communication with your prospect, while at the same time, you must remember whatever that you say or whatever that you post online will leave a digital footprint. Therefore, any communication via the social media must be fair, clear, and not misleading. Now, let us dive further in relation to social media surveillance. So I would arrange it slightly different. So we will do the sharing of the FIMM's common observation first, and then after that we will go towards the ethical and other key takeaways as well. FIMM started doing its SOCMED surveillance last year, and you can refer to our annual report if you wanted to know more details. Basically, our supervision team has done some mystery shopping exercise, and currently they have embarked on a bit more sophisticated tools as part of the supervision technology, or section name, aka SupTech. With that, to understand further about the observations that from FIMM SOCMED activities, let us welcome Puan Ava to share her views. So there are 3 questions that I would like to pose to Ava as part of her presentation. First, what are the common observations or findings that you see when conducting SOCMED surveillance in the industry? So that's the first question about common observations and findings. Second question, what are the examples of actions taken by members and distributors to remediate any of the findings or observations that you have shared with them? Okay, so second part is on action taken. Last but not least, can you also share with the audience on some of the key regulations under FIMM and the SE on what members or distributors need to take note when allowing their consultants to market on social media platform? Over to you, Ava.
Thank you, Dr. Lisa. Good morning to my fellow panelists and all participants who are joining this session. All right, before I answer your questions, let me provide a little bit of background on how social media surveillance, or SOCMED in short, I call it, starts in FIMM. In 2019, we realized that there is an increasing trend for both distributors and consultants using social media to promote the scheme. So, as what Dr. Lisa mentioned just now, in 2020, we started our SOCMED surveillance, where we sieve through postings made in social media platforms, including blogs, microblogs such as Twitter, social networks like Facebook, LinkedIn, forums, and image and video sharing platforms such as YouTube, Instagram, and even TikTok. Coming back to Dr. Lisa's question on what are the common observations we have seen thus far, if you have the chance to read our FIMM's annual report for the year 2020, you will see that we have shared some of the observations noted from our SOCMED surveillance last year. Next slide, please. Thank you. For this session, I have prepared a slide which summarizes the observation we have seen thus far for everyone's reference. If you see the two boxes highlighted in pink at the top two observations from our SOCMED surveillance. Let's look at it one by one. On the first pink box, which relates to unauthorized use of designation, title, or qualification seen used by persons promoting unit trust and PRS scheme. Ladies and gentlemen, this actually topped the chart. If you are an investor, you may have seen titles such as financial planner, financial advisor, investment advisor, investor consultant that is being used by consultants or individuals on social media. Such designations are reserved to only individuals who are licensed by the regulatory bodies. So, as an investor, it will be best before you engage a particular consultant of your choice from the social media platform to first check on their websites whether they are licensed or registered by the relevant regulators, such as the SE or FIMM or FM. If you are a consultant, if you are using such designation, please change it immediately at your own accord before we reach out to you individually. The second pink box relates to making false statement about the scheme that they are promoting, and there was also false statement made about the regulator as well. For example, we have seen a consultant stating the social media page that the scheme being promoted is monitored closely by PNM and controlled by the SE, which is not accurate. Given that the scheme is a capital market product, promoted schemes must be approved by the SE. Let's move on to the observation that are in blue color. I will start with those on the left. Okay. This observation is on posting made on the social media account by unregistered individuals pretending to be one. We have seen persons pretending to be attached to a company registered with FIMM and stating in the social media account that they are a registered consultant, but that's not true. So how could you ensure these persons are registered with FIMM? Okay, this is to reiterate the point that was shared during yesterday's session where FIMM has introduced digital verification effective 21st August 2021. So, as an investor, you can either ask the consultant to show the search result under our website, or you can conduct own verification by simply going to our website, www.fimm.com.my, under Is My Consultant Authorized, where you just need to key in either the person's name or FIMM registration number or IC number, whichever information you know. Okay, moving on to the next observation. We also note that FIMM logo was being used in their postings. It is probably consultant not knowing or being ignorant on what they are posting online is not complying with our FIMM Code of Ethics. To consultants, please take note, you should not use FIMM's logo with our consent. Another observation is more about sharing your personal information with third party. As an investor, please be careful on what information you are sharing online in the public space, especially your personal data. Okay, let's move on to the observation highlighted in blue on your right. The next observation that I want to highlight is on misrepresent or make false or exaggerated statement concerning the schemes. We noted that several misleading statements being posted on various social media pages by consultants, promising a high or consistent yearly return for the fund without providing any basis to support such claim. This may mislead investors thinking this percentage of returns are guaranteed. So, as an investor, in addition to verifying that the schemes are legitimate, it is important for you to conduct some research on your own before committing to invest in schemes that are promoted online. The next observation relates to providing forecasts of future performance of a scheme, which is an outright prohibition. Okay, remember that. Last but not least, we have seen signs of consultants facilitating pre-signing of form. A gentle reminder message from me to our dear registered consultant: please be reminded that you shall not request, allow, accept, or submit any pre-signed or pre-thumbprint from an investor, regardless whether it is via online or during face-to-face meeting. This requirement is clearly stated in our FIMM Code of Ethics. And for the investors, please do not entertain such requests, even though you might feel it is a convenient option. But remember, and what was also said yesterday at one of the sessions, there is a price to pay for convenience. In answering Dr. Lisa's second question on action taken by direct distributors, I would like to break it into 2 points. Firstly, we have seen some distributors are starting to conduct their own social media surveillance. This is certainly a welcoming move as both FIMM and distributors continue to collaborate in ensuring the online marketing is done in a responsible manner. Secondly, all our SOCMED observations are shared with affected distributors for their further action. We have seen distributors taking varying degree of disciplinary actions on the consultant, which befitting their respective misconduct. Okay, Dr. Lisa, on your last question, which relate to relevant key regulation. Our main regulation in FIMM is FIMM Code of Ethics and FIMM's Consolidated Rules, which covers individuals and companies registered with FIMM. It complements the SC's regulation as well. Distributors and registered consultants would need to adhere to the regulatory requirements when conducting their marketing activities, regardless of if it's made face-to-face or online. So what is important, in a nutshell, is for the distributors and consultants to provide a clear, fair, and balanced information about their products and services offered. It must not contain misleading information such as exaggerated, flamboyant, overstated, or overzealous messaging. Also, not to attempt to mislead, deceive, or exploit investors' vulnerability, including their lack of knowledge on investment products or experience in investing. What is posted on social media would need to be easily understood and must have due regard to vulnerable investment segment as well. While we hope you as the investor could put in some attention on the red flags seen online, outside FIMM will also continue to monitor the social media space. So why is this SOCMED surveillance important to us? Well, we want to ensure the professionalism is elevated among our registered consultants and companies in maintaining a healthy competition and satisfactory communication with potential investors online. And also, it would be one of the several ways we have in place to protect the investors from being a victim of scam tactics that could be happening online. I hope I answered your question, Lisa. Over to you.
Yes, Ava. Thank you very much for such an insightful observations. So as what Puan Ava has mentioned to consultants, please take note of these observations or finding so that you can actually conduct your marketing and distributions if you were to do via social media responsibly. Well, today we have two representatives from the industry. Why don't we ask for their perspective, right? So might as well we make use of the two expert panelists where they can actually share some of the best practices for your benchmarking purposes. First, let us have Puan Zaharah from Bank Islam to share her views. Well, I believe, Zaharah, your team would have commenced your own monitoring on sales practices among the consultants when they do their marketing on social media platform. So if you could share with us the following three aspects, yeah? The first one, how does Bank Islam monitor your consultants' activity on social media to ensure their compliance with your internal regulation? That's the first one. Second, compared to pre-COVID and new normal situation, did you notice any interesting observation, from your social media monitoring? Third question, whether the deployment of an advanced surveillance tool or a simple Google alert is sufficient. So over to you, Zaharah.
Thank you, Dr. Rosliza. Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to my fellow panelists and audience. To answer to your first question, there are necessary guidelines and measurement in place by Bank Islam as part of the sales surveillance on our consultants' activities. Firstly, it is mandatory for staff to fulfill the e-learning courses on Preserving Banking and Information Act or PDPA and Code of Practice, also known as COP. Under COP, it covers the necessary guidelines on disclosure of information, including the prohibited activities as well as the penalties. Under Code of Practice, it is strictly discouraged to collect customer information more than what is required. In addition, the staff is not allowed to process the personal data for marketing purposes without the necessary consent. Failure to seek the necessary consent, staff will be subjected to a penalty of Ringgit Malaysia 100,000 or imprisonment for a term not exceeding 1 year. Secondly, as part of performance management, we evaluate staff performance not only from a quantitative measurement perspective, but we do take into consideration of their qualitative performance as well. That includes staff fulfilling the necessary requirements for both compliance and risk management. In the event if there's a breach in Code of Practice that leads to audit findings, staff will be subjected to the necessary actions by the bank. Thirdly, and from the marketing of unit trust fund perspective, staff is required to fulfill the necessary product training. During the training, staff will be guided on the necessary marketing materials that are allowed to be distributed for public consumption. In addition, the distribution unit will provide the marketing guidelines for staff to observe. That includes a standard script, e-flyers, and e-brochures that have been approved by the bank and for marketing purposes only. In the event if the bank finds out that information has been wrongly shared or misleading information, the bank has the right to take the necessary actions against the staff involved. Lastly, our business marketing along with the IT team will be observing the activities of our consultant, particularly via the social media platform. Any inconsistencies in the marketing materials and information will be subjected to the necessary action by the bank. By the way, often we see these days that information is being circulated around in the social media. We have seen how pictures or stories have been viral overnight, thanks to the social media platform. However, I can't stress enough on the importance of verifying and checking on the authenticity of the news before it is being forwarded and shared. On the second question with regards to the differences and the observation made on social media monitoring, well, over the last 20 months since Malaysia was hit by its first COVID case, we have witnessed the need for change. Besides our commitment to be involved in the recovery process, we are obligated to adapt to the new normal situation. With this, we have seen changes that are being made constantly in order to harmonize with the new norm. From our observation, we noticed that the usage of social media platform, especially for marketing purposes, is imperative. We have witnessed how the politicians, celebrities, and business owners are tapping into these resources in order to reach out to their audience. For some organizations, they decided to leverage on this infrastructure by engaging the social media influencers as part of their marketing initiatives. As far as our social media account is concerned, we have seen a significant growth during the pandemic. We have witnessed a record high in terms of the number of followers, an increase in users' interactions, as well as viewers. I suppose this is the silver lining occurring out of the pandemic. Lastly, with regards to whether the deployment of an advanced surveillance tools or simple Google alert function is enough, well, from my observation, any tools that can contribute to strengthening of the sales surveillance and monitoring of the activities is indeed necessary. So whether it is an advanced surveillance tools or even a simple Google alert act function, both are as important as part of the control mechanism. Back to you, Dr. Rosliza.
Thank you, Zaharah. So if I can sum up, in short, back in your bank, you would have code of practice, KPI, and qualitative criteria, for their performance, product training, some of the sanctions if they were found guilty, and also some collaboration with the IT team to do the necessary social media surveillance. Well, that is actually from the perspective of Bank Islam. Now, since Shahrin, another house, shall we hear from his point of view? Over to you, Shahrin.
Right. Yeah, hi, thanks, Lisa. Assalamualaikum, and good morning to everyone. Lisa, I'll try to take all three questions together. So I hope you don't mind. Social media. Well, for the company that I work for, Affin Hwang Asset Management, we've been delving into social media marketing before the pandemic started. I think it's 2018, 2019. So there are two aspects to it, okay? When it comes to social media, one is from the company itself, and the other one is from the consultants themselves, which they do on their own. So when it comes to the social media that comes out from the company itself, of course, it goes through compliance department, and we will monitor it and make sure that the contents are all okay and comply with the SE guidelines. But we've been noticing during the pandemic that there is a lot of consultants that are actually using social media themselves on a personal basis. And how we know this was because we have been receiving queries from investors or potential investors asking us whether these postings are genuine and accurate and things like that. So we realize that there's a lot of consultants that are using social media. So what our marketing and communications team has done together with our compliance team, we've employed social media listening tools to monitor the activities and some online platforms, for example, like Google Alert, Essentia, Meltwater, to monitor any news or mentions related to Affin Hwang Asset Management and the use of its brand name and products. So, for example, if a fund is being promoted by a consultant and the name Affin Hwang comes out, then it will be captured on a real-time basis, and our marketing and communications department will pick it up. And then it will allow us to quickly review and to also escalate any issues and address any of them as quickly as we can. In regards to discrepancies when they use company logos, titles used by consultant, that I have to admit we have realized quite a bit in line with FIMM's observation. Also inappropriate messaging or even non-compliance related matters such as misleading info, material omission, and things like that. So we do notice this as per observations by FIMM amongst our agents as well. But I have to say that there's not a lot of non-compliances, because here at Affin Hwang Asset Management, we do limit or try to limit our consultants' social media postings to reshares of our own company social media postings. So rather than coming up with their own social media postings and talk about funds, we prefer, or rather we try to tell them, please use the company's social media postings, and these would be in Facebook or in Instagram. So to your question, whether there is any really interesting observation pre-COVID and under post-COVID, I have to admit, yes, there are an increase in engagement. We found a lot of reshares of the company's social media postings by both public as well as consultants. So it's not just the consultants, but also public as well. And typically, our consultants will put in their contact details, in case the potential investors would like to invest in our fund. So they will put their contact details, and this could actually attract new leads. So social media, I have to admit, is a growing segment for us, and we have found quite a number of interesting things as well coming out from social media postings that we have. In fact, recently, we had actually found out that a few consultants from our competitors had actually plagiarized our content. They just changed the name of the company, they changed the name of the fund, but the contents of the social media posting was plagiarized, and then they promote it as if it's their own offerings. So this was, I don't know, I don't know whether we want to take it as something good for us, or is it really bad, but we were quite honored that they actually plagiarized our content. So social media marketing is definitely the way forward for the industry. Of course, the compliance officers and the marketing people would have to monitor the consultants' activities because of investor protection measures. But like I say, we are very cognizant of our role to market responsibly to the investors and safeguard interests of our investors. So, is the current surveillance tool that we use sufficient? Well, I have to admit, for now, it is sufficient for now. But as you know, Google Alerts and other social media surveillance tools that is currently available freely really depends on whether it is a public or a private account. So we can only monitor public account. We can't monitor private accounts. So that's our problem. So if we have an advanced surveillance tools that can actually also monitor private accounts of the consultants, then that would be a blessing. Thank you.
Interesting observation, Shahrin. So basically, if I were to compare or contrast with Zaharah's, practices, so back in your company, you have deployed some advanced social media surveillance tools. You also have some internal team that are really doing the monitoring of social media platform, as well as doing some restriction on the company materials, right? So take note to all members and distributors, if you are planning to embark on your social media monitoring, you can take some of the points that, from the existing market players. So these are some of the best practices. So now, let us go into the second aspect on the ethical versus the profitability key takeaways, yeah? Well, there is no doubt that social media is one of the ways for consultants to generate leads or bring in the new sales or even maintain client relationship with their set of investors. However, this is a delicate subject on balancing ethical values versus profitability. Well, not all the time it's just about money, right? Well, before we discuss on the balancing act, let us hear from the compliance person's perspective, Shahrin. If you could share with us two aspects, yeah? The first question, how much can a compliance officer do in monitoring consultants' marketing activities on social media? So this one is more of the role of compliance officer to those who are actually compliance officer in the audience, yeah? The second aspect, what do you think is too much or too little in monitoring such activity? This is especially true for, this is especially challenging for members or distributors that have hundreds and thousands of their consultants, under their wing. Especially to those who are actually using their personal social media account to do marketing. So if you could shed some lights from the compliance perspective, Shahrin.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. At present, I guess our ability to monitor consultants is quite limited. I mean, of course, we can do trainings like Zaharah has mentioned. We can do trainings. We can limit the use of social media postings, the content, to what the company actually posts. So they are not allowed to actually do their own postings and their own content. And we can also use the social media listening platform. So without, for example, the social media listening platform, without it, if a compliance officer is to monitor it manually, my God, that's going to be very difficult, So we need an advanced surveillance tool for this, because imagine a company with 40,000 consultants, and they can actually do postings anytime. So that's going to be very difficult for a compliance officer. Basically, they can just put aside the compliance work and do just surveillance. So that's a bit ridiculous. So I think social media listening platform is a good tool. And I guess in a passive kind of way, tell them to limit their postings to just what the company actually posts. So that's something I think that we can use. Like I mentioned earlier, the stricter privacy laws is going to be a bit of a bane for us, because it hinders our monitoring activities across the various social media platforms, because we cannot actually monitor private accounts. We can only monitor public accounts. So that's going to be an issue. But of course, cost of compliance, we already know, is already rising. And, to have an advanced surveillance system that is tailor-made for you is going to cost a lot. And it's always difficult to justify to the board on such costs, because it does not really translate to increased profitability. So if your board is the kind of board that, views compliance to be very important, and the cost associated with compliance to be an acceptable cost, then you would have less problems, I guess, because you can then deploy specialized advanced monitoring tools. Too much or too little in monitoring such activities. I mean, to me, when it comes to compliance, there is no such thing as too much or too little. I mean, I can't actually not monitor compliance, and then let's say, for example, one day there is a complaint, and then the complaint goes to SC, and then when SC comes to me and say what's going on here, and I can't respond to them and say, oh, it's not under my radar. There's no such thing as that. You have to do your compliance work. So if you're lucky, perhaps SC will accept whatever justifications you may give. But for me, I'd rather be safe than sorry, and I would rather monitor everything if I can. So at the end of the day, what matters most is to safeguard investors' interests. So focus of monitoring and the content should always be on misleading information, fraudulent information, or even omission of material information. Thanks.
Well, as you said, investing in all this advanced technology, of course, it actually requires some investment, and how long it will take for the ROI to come back, etc. But because this is actually an emerging risk, and we can see it is actually picking up, with social media, digitalization agenda on the board. So I believe, like, if there are any board members, in the audience, so I guess, like, please support your team members, especially from the compliance team, to ensure that they have the necessary tools to do their job, because you don't want SE to be knocking on the door. Okay. Interesting. How about you, Zaharah? Do you share the same view as Shahrin?
I would like to echo to what Shahrin had said earlier. From my observation, the compliant officer has limitations in monitoring the activities in view of PDPA requirements. As shared by Shahrin, if the social media account is set as private account, the information will not be publicly available for viewing. Hence, the monitoring of consultants' marketing activities is restricted. This, in my opinion, will be the biggest challenge for the compliance officer. Moreover, there is no dedicated system in place for monitoring of the marketing activities. If such system is to be developed and implemented, the cost will be substantial. Yeah. The question will be then whether the organization is willing to absorb the cost, especially if the ROI is literally low. In regards to the questions, whether is it too much or too little? Well, in ensuring that the necessary regulatory requirements are being met, it is essential for the organization to monitor and observe the activities of consultants. For an organization that is overseeing a substantial number of consultants, it is critical for control measurements to be appropriately implemented. Yeah, and in my opinion, any control measurements in order to curb the emerging risks out of the marketing activities or initiatives through social media platform will be necessary. Hence, there's no too much or too little when it comes to civilian.
Thank you, Zaharah, for the sharing. Yeah. Well, the desire to get more incentive or sales commission versus ethical values as consultant is in fact a matter that members or distributors need to strike a balance. So this is, for example, when you promote the incentive for overseas trip or giving a good high value items to top sales performer, versus doing things properly by the book. So it's a bit of a balancing act. We understand that, yeah. And there is also a growing trend in using social media influencers to promote company or products being sold. So this could be seen as an extension of marketing effort. So the question is, which way is the appropriate method to do? Should you engage the influencer or not? What do you think members or distributors need to do to manage whichever practices or approach that they adopt? The second question, this is a bit of an important point, yeah, which I hope, all consultants that are present today, please listen, because this is what are the do's and don'ts. Yeah, the question is, what are the do's and don'ts in using social media as marketing tools? What are the common mistakes that consultants should avoid when doing their marketing in social media? So this is a bit of a tips or guidance, to our consultants. So since it is an important subject, so let me invite all my panel to actually share their views. Perhaps let's start with Shahrin, followed by Zaharah, and then Ava. Over to you guys.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. This is my personal view. I'm not a marketing person, so I'm more of a compliance risk and legal person. But to me, there is really no one appropriate way in marketing products to investors. I mean, as long as the marketing efforts reach the intended investors and they actually invest in your funds, then I think that way of marketing is successful. And companies, I believe, will always continue to use the old, tried and tested, proven and successful ways of marketing their products. But I guess for companies moving forward, if they look at how they are going to be like in the next 5 to 10 years, maybe even 3 years, they must try modern day avenues of marketing. And amongst others, like, topic of discussion today, social media, and recently social media influencers, because I have to admit that social media influencers do have their own niche, and they are actually quite successful. The company I work with actually have been using social media influencers over the last couple of years, and it has actually bear fruit. So the thing is about using social media influencers, it can be a double-edged sword. There are risks involved for sure, including reputational ones. So you need to choose the right influencer that can bring results that may even last longer after your campaign period ends, because your campaign period might be just about 1 month. But if with the right influencer, with the right content, then it can actually prolong. The people will remember it, and the videos will be looked at for months to come. So the key is firstly to identify your target audience and working with the correct influencer, and produce engaging content. Content that can actually capture attention without being too aggressive and without breaching any rules and guidelines. So SC's latest marketing guidelines, which was issued, actually do help us on the best practices involved when working with third-party influencers and also key opinion leaders. They clearly outline the risks, and we also need to obtain further information, or rather disclose how to obtain further information about the mentioned product or fund in the videos. And if the social media influencer is also an investor in our funds, then it should be clearly mentioned as part of the disclaimer because of conflict of interest. So all these are in SC's latest marketing guidelines. So it's good for us that SC also looks into this area. But whether you use an influencer or not, in my view, the same principles of marketing still apply. Using a social influencer, social media is just a mode of trying to reach out to the clients. But what's important is always to market responsibly with the interests of investors at the top of the mind. But that's always the case when it comes from compliance officer. Okay? So what are the do's and don'ts in using social media as marketing tools? Well, the do's would definitely be, as I mentioned before, be responsible in your content, in your messaging, especially when it comes to showcasing fund performance, because quite a lot of investors, they will always ask, how has the fund performed? But this is investing in securities, so past performance is definitely not an indication of future performance. Everyone knows that. And then think before you post your content, make sure that you're not in breach of anything, and that your content are actually not misleading and is accurate and factual. Always disclose a disclaimer to protect yourselves, and link as to how investors can find more information about the product or about the company. Don't ever try to mislead investors. I mean, this is a fund, and this is for consultants. This is your bread and butter. If clients don't trust you, that's it. They will go away. They will never invest with you or in the funds that you're trying to sell in the future. Do not make exaggerated promises or returns or claims. You know that. Investing in securities, nothing is guaranteed. And also, please do not incite investors to make rushed investment decisions. Let them have a look at the information memorandum, the product highlight sheet. Let them take their time to invest, because this is most probably their hard-earned cash. And depending on their risk profile as well, they may be a very risk-averse client. So don't rush them. Let them think about it and let them invest at their own pace. Thanks, Lisa.
Interesting observation. Over to you, Zaharah.
Okay, regards to the questions whether is it necessary to engage influencer or not, my answer would be the engagement of an influencer as part of marketing and advertisements has become customary these days, yeah, quite common, especially to promote products and services. It is widely known that an influencer with the highest number of followers will likelihood be helpful to increase their productivity and sales. However, it is imperative to note that not all products or services can be marketed by influencers. For the marketing of investment products such as unit trust funds, the awareness on risk and the underlying exposure must be appropriately explained. Yeah. In addition, investor appreciates transparency and guidance on the selection of funds in accordance to their requirements. So I'm not sure whether influencer will be in a better position to do this. Yeah. After all, as the saying goes, a relationship that is established out of honesty and respect lasts longer than the one that is based on rewards and recognition. With regards to the second questions on do's and don'ts in using social media, as shared by Shahrin and as stated in the guidelines, the consultant is allowed to share the marketing materials as long as it is approved by the regulators, by the bank, and it is for public consumption. Yeah. Nonetheless, the consultant is advised to verify the authenticity of the marketing material with his or her organization prior to circulation. Of course, the consultant is strictly prohibited to share any private information regards to the product and services. Yeah. The consultant must not disclose his client's information in social media. Yeah. And the most important part, consultant must strictly adhere to PDPA and Code of Practice.
Okay. Thank you, Zaharah, for sharing that aspect. How about you, Alva?
Okay, I'm going to start by saying new generations are more prone to invest based on friends' advices or referring to others in their own social group of friends based on their own research made online. Younger investors especially get their advice online, maybe taking on more risks than the rest if they do not consult with the registered consultant. This group of investors may also try. As for investors, you should remember what is said by the influencer is more important than who they are. Having many followers does not mean you should trust them 100%. I mean, as for consultant, to answer the questions on do's and don'ts, the list could be long. But what is important is to first have the messages to be clearly stated on your postings and not misleading nature. I'm just echoing what Shahrin and Zaharah is saying. Although consultants may think using catchy phrases on their posting will attract more investors, but bear in mind, it should be carefully used and not misleading. One thing that is often not seen present or missing in the social media postings are relevant warning, disclaimer, qualification, or even the terms and conditions not being stated to some of the promotional campaigns seen online. I mean, Shahrin mentioned it earlier, so I'm just also saying again as a reminder. So this should also be clearly mentioned, as we do receive complaints from investors out there who felt they are being misled with promising returns from a scheme being marketed online. So I hope you answered your question, Dr. Lisa.
Yeah. So basically, transparency is key. The messages must be clear and accurate. So we do have some questions later on, but let us just go to the next, scope of our discussion, moving towards other jurisdiction. So now let us look at what other regulators are doing in this SOCMED arena. Some regulators in the US, for example, FINRA, through their examination letter, requires company to disclose on how customers are acquired through social media and how do these companies manage their compliance obligation, they are related to information collected from these customers. So I recall we were talking about some PDPA element in the earlier discussion. US SEC also published their investor alert on fraudulent investment scheme via social media. SC Malaysia also have something similar on this via their investor alert. And I recall correctly yesterday from a conversation or the discussion that we had, in relation to know your rights as the investor, the 7 simple steps to avoid investment scam that was spoken by one of the panelists. The first one actually is about being cautious on investment that are offered via social media platform. The UK FCA also issued some guidance note in relation to financial promotion via social media. So the question is there anything that regulators or FIMM alike could do to help monitor these SOCMED activities that are happening nowadays? So maybe I'll invite all the 3 panelists to share their views. Maybe I'll start with Zaharah this round, followed by Shahrin and Ava.
Sure. Okay, from the investor perspective, okay, I would suggest that the awareness is critical, in order to educate the public on the information that is widely shared, especially via the social media platform. With that, regulators such as FIMM can assist by continuously reaching out to the public via campaigns and media on the necessary steps and guidance to be taken by the investors prior to any decision making. In addition, the awareness on the needs to verify the information is vital, especially when there are so many investment frauds and scams that are being promoted via social media these days. Lastly, perhaps something to ponder, a dedicated act on the application of social media as one of the mediums for direct marketing, in my personal opinion, is necessary. The act is meant to control, observe, and protect the information as well as the circulation. Did I answer you, Rosliza?
Yep. Well, having a dedicated act, I think that can be quite challenging. Okay, in view of the present situation. Okay, maybe we move on to Shahrin, to share your views on that.
Yeah. What regulators and FIMM could do to help monitor? Basically, FIMM has done quite a good job in monitoring SOCMED activities. Like through the observations that was shown by Ava just now, so it's quite clear, and they could share that with the industry players. So that's a good step. Also, alerts by DSC on fraudulent investment schemes, that is definitely helpful to investors. And also, SC had actually come up with guidelines for digital marketers like us. So that also helped. But these guidelines is really for fund management companies. Relevant to us. So it's really down to the compliance officers to make sure that it trickles down to the consultants. But like you mentioned earlier, the desire to get sales commission as opposed to maintaining ethical values may drive some consultants to still post unwanted contents to attract investors, whether intentional or unintentional. So we're not sure, but they may still do it. So I guess if FIMM could actually have or issued or establish a principle-based rules that could guide consultants, because you guys are a self-regulatory organization that looks after the consultants anyway. So if you can come up with a guide for the consultants themselves, because SC has already come up with the guidelines for us, for the fund management company. So if FIMM could do that for the consultants, I think that would be good for the consultants. Also, as you know, and multiple times mentioned by Zaharah about PDPA, stricter privacy laws in the future is going to be a challenge for us doing surveillance, because we can only monitor public postings, not private postings. So I don't know whether SC can help us with that. I'm not too sure whether SC can, but maybe SC can help us with that together with the PDPA Commission. I'm not too sure. But personally, I also feel that efforts should also be focused by maybe SIDC and FIMM on educating the public about what to look for in social media, you know, the do's and the don'ts, the concerns, like you mentioned just now about being cautious, so that investors are always aware and not be scammed, because there are a lot of scams these days out there. So perhaps educating investors should also be a priority by regulators and FIMM alike.
Thank you, Shahrin, for the piece of advice. We take note, as part of our policy formulation. Ava, over to you.
Seems like the questions are more directed to me. Okay, thank you, Shahrin. Okay, I just want to start off saying that building a presence on social media sites like Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook, for example, no doubt could help financial advisors build a relationship with the new investors and enhance communication with existing investors. I mean, you can see it through during our COVID-19 MCO since last year. We have seen more buzz present in the social media platform. We do take note of your mentioning about the regulation side. So yeah, I mean, keep the space on your attention. As mentioned earlier, FIMM has embarked on SOCMED surveillance since early 2020 in observing marketing activities done online. There's something evolving. Apart from using online tools, we would also complement our surveillance activities with elements of mystery shopping as well, where it's needed. Yes, we are listening to the buzz and traffic happening online in various social media platforms, and we are also collaborating with the distributors as and when it's required. So as I say, it's an evolving process, and do watch out the space when the things start to evolve even to the next phase. Over to you, Rosliza.
Thank you, Ava, and all the panelists. So Shahrin, coming back to on, whether is there anything that FIMM could do. So I guess, please watch a space, because FIMM and SC, we are coming out, with some internal guidance or, some best practices in relation to advertising and promotion via social media. So okay. I mean, I can't say much further because it's still, we have to go through the necessary due process, but watch the space, yeah?
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Well, since we have quite a mixed audience, for this session, let us impart some sharing or guidance to them from their perspective, so that they could relate, from what we are talking about for today's conversation. So let's start with, from members or distributors' perspective, whether there is any value add to the company by using social media influencer. As a company, how do you supervise the activities or communication that are made by paid social media? So perhaps maybe Shahrin can advise us on this. Not so long, because I've just got a reminder in relation to the time.
Okay. As I mentioned before, the company I work for, we use social media influencer, and it does bring benefits to companies if you choose that route. But choosing the right social media influencer is very important, especially in the market segment in which you are trying to approach. Companies need to devise the right campaign mechanics with the audience investment journey in mind, and be as seamless as possible, because this social media influencer thing starts from the point of clicking to watch the video and then registering their interest to learn more. So it's a good marketing tool to use if you decide to use it. But of course, content is very critical too. In our case, in Affin Hwang Asset Management, the content is always looked at by the compliance department to make sure that the media influencer do not say what's not to be said. So we want to make sure that we are always in compliance with the guidelines on that matter.
Thank you, Shahrin. So now let's move on to the consultants. They are in the audience. While social media platform can potentially boost your businesses, what is the fine line that they need to know between marketing versus financial promotion? So maybe I pass over to Zaharah to share her views on this.
Thank you, Rosliza. With regards to the fine line that the consultant needs to know, while social media is widely used to promote and market product and services, however, it is important to note that the platform is not necessarily available to all. Yeah. For investors without social media account, they rely on marketing materials as well as the consultant to provide the necessary advice. Okay. Hence, the consultants are required to strictly adhere to best practices that includes fair dealing and transparency. Yeah. It goes without saying that the consultant must not put his or her personal interest first. The consultant must conduct the necessary steps before any value proposition being made. That includes, which is critical, to note, that includes know your customers or KYC. Consultant must perform the suitability assessment and to identify the right product that meets the requirements. So these are priority. Thus, the marketing information via the social media must be positioned as an invitation rather than inducement. Did I answer you, Rosliza?
Yep. Thank you for sharing your perspective. Now, for the public at large, especially those people who are the audience in this arena for the public, what are the dangers of investing using information posted on social media? How to identify the telltale sign that something is just not quite right about the investment, the persona, if they're using a social media influencer, etc. So perhaps Ava can give some piece of advice on this, please.
Sure. Okay, as I said, social media is indeed a powerful channel of communication that reach a wide audience very rapidly. In responding to your question about, red flags, let's call it, for investors, you can't run away from doing some form of due diligence at your end. I was also mentioned in yesterday's session, you need to do a little bit of homework before you invest. Okay, but before you commit to invest or any trust or private retirement schemes, do check on whether the consultants are registered first. As I mentioned earlier, compare the information posted in a consultant's page to the actual page of the distributor to have additional comfort on whether the schemes are being offered. Also, as an investor, you have the right to say no. Risk-free investment opportunities, promises of a guaranteed high return, sensational marketing pitches that may come with numerous too good testimonies. These are examples of red flags or out there to watch. Of course, there's a possibility that it could be genuine, but you still need to be extra careful and not to fall in the trap of that too good to be true kind of postings. And another point is, as I mentioned earlier, and it's very important, do protect your personal data. The postings online could at times be a promotion gimmicks, also a tool of cold calling with something enticing to attract investors with short-term offers. Again, you have the right to say no. This is what you have to remember. Do not feel pressured to act now. Take your time to check out the investment yourself. Conduct some background checks before you commit in investing your money. I'm sure the power of netizens is strong out there. As an investor, you also may report to FIMM using our complaint channel if you see suspicious postings made online. Do visit our website for further information. That's all from me.
Excellent. So at least, these are some of the key takeaways from the members' perspective, consultant perspective, as well as the general public. Well, thank you to all panelists. We are reaching to the end of our discussion. Now let us take some questions here because I can see from the slido we have a couple of questions. Maybe I will start with a direct question first because there is a specific question to Shahrin. The question is, what is the role of compliance department? How does the compliance department help UTC or PRC in the event they have violated, in inverted comma, the guideline? So a bit more general. So can you shed some light to this, inquirer, please?
What is the role of compliance? I
Yep.
mean, of course, compliance is there to make sure that the company is always in compliance with the guidelines and the securities laws, so that the company will not be penalized by the SC or by the regulators. But sorry, what was the second question again?
The second part, how does compliance department help UTC or PRC in the event they have violated the guideline?
How does the compliance department help? Well, if there is already a breach, we can't do anything about it. I mean, compliance department will only raise it to the board, but and try to explain to the regulator if there is proper justifications to the regulator, to explain the case to the regulators. But there's a limit to what we can do if the agents or the consultants have already breached the guidelines.
True. I agree. So thank you. I hope that answered, one of the anonymous questions that was directed to you, the first one. Okay. Now let's go to the next question that we have. Perhaps I will, let me see. Because my Slido is actually keep on changing.
I guess there's many questions.
Yeah.
But
I mean, if I want to add on to Shahrin's what he mentioned just now, I mean, FIMM do assess the actions taken by distributors to ascertain on whether that action commensurate with the misconduct. So if we deem insufficient, then perhaps we consider further actions to be taken. So I'm just adding on what Shahrin has mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and then there's also a question related to what do you call that? In a stock investment, using technical analysis to predict the future pricing of a stock, isn't this is the same as forecasting the future performance of a scheme? I remember this is one of the observation by Abba, right? So perhaps Abba, can you respond to this question?
Okay, that's quite a tough one, but let me try. Okay, maybe unit trust portfolio is comprised of multiple stocks and securities. So I mean, no doubt nowadays there are a lot of data analytics being used, and then you make reference to a particular stock, but it is not enough to enable prediction of UTS performance. Hence, if you notice, we have this requirement under the COE, para 4.6. For consultant to actually they should not, distributor and consultant should not provide forecast of future performance of any scheme. So maybe you could, for the consultant, can you please look at the COE again, and there will be a guidance there.
Thank you, Ava. So the next question, if I could combine this question, because it seems like there is a split question, but the first question is not much of a question inside it. It says, most proliferation of funds highlight mainly on outperformance without stating clearly the risk, which is normally hidden in the fine print. What about highlighting outperformance without risk associated with investment? So I guess the main question is actually about the second part. What about highlighting outperformance without risk associated in investment? So perhaps maybe I'll pose to Shahrin to answer that question.
Okay. Actually, risks involved in investment in unit trust as well as the underlying investments is always stated in the product highlight sheet as well as in the information memorandum. But I guess in this day and age, people don't really look at prospectus, information memorandum, or PHS because they will be looking at the e-version of it, and maybe it's true, it can be in fine print. This is a tough question to answer. But the thing is, investments, be it outperformance or underperformance, always carries a risk. So it's very important for consultants to explain this to their clients, that if they were to invest in equities or in bond funds, there is always risks involved. There is no guarantee that there is going to be outperformance and there is going to be underperformance. There's no guarantee. You can't predict what the stock market is going to do. Unless you're investing in money market funds, then it's different. But money market fund is usually just for placement. So it's important for the consultants to explain to client clearly that what are the risks involved in fund performance, in getting outperformance, or in getting even mediocre returns. But there are risks always involved when it comes to investment in securities.
Thank you, Shahrin. Hope that answered to the anonymous inquirer. Yeah. So the next question: can I engage my friends who are not registered or in the process of being registered with FIMM to start promoting products on social media? So this one, I wonder whether Zaharah, would you like to take this question?
I think the answer is obvious. Yeah. We don't recommend any individual without the necessary certifications to promote or market unit trust funds, irregardless physically or in social media. So there is a minimum requirement for consultant to go through, which is they have to go through SOCMED, basically certifications of unit trust examinations, and once they have passed the exam, then only they will be qualified. So the current process flow for consultant or unit trust consultant to market, or in fact to perform a sales pitch on products, the person, he or she must carry at the minimum qualification or certification to perform such thing. So to answer the question, Rosliza, I will say that I don't encourage. In fact, I don't think it is possible, unless the person is certified accordingly.
I know a lot of people or participants, they are interested to give opinion, give product opinion, or do some marketing in relation to unit trust and private retirement scheme. But please remember, hold on to your excitement, until you get registered with FIMM, then only you are allowed to actually give the necessary advice. So please watch out. If you do, before you get the necessary authorization from FIMM, our Robocop, which is a Puan Abang, might catch you. Okay, so please hold on until you get the proper certification. So the next question.
Sorry, if I can add, Lisa, just for everyone's notation. Social media is actually just a medium that you use to market the product, just like you use newspaper or you use brochure, but social media is just a medium. So the rules are very clear. If you are not registered with FIMM, you are not supposed to market the product. So, be it social media or brochure or whatever not, you just can't.
Bingo. Exactly. Thank you, Shahrin. Okay. Now, let's go into the next question that asks from Tek Chong, from Penang, I guess. He actually said, how does FIMM determine the difference between a distributor's opinion expressed from misleading product promotion? So I repeat, how does FIMM determine the difference between a distributor's opinion expressed from misleading product promotion? So I guess maybe this question will have to be addressed by Shahrin or Zaharah. Would you like to take on this one?
I'll try to take that question. It's actually very difficult to distinguish whether it's an opinion or not, whether it's opinion or marketing. So there's a very fine line in this area. I mean, I have had questions from even my own marketing and communications department about social media influencer, whether, when he talks about a certain product that we sell, whether is it his personal opinion or is it a marketing? So like I say, it's a very fine line. So I guess some companies, some compliance officers may go with the risky approach and view it as an opinion, but maybe some compliance officer would be taking a safer approach and deem it to be marketing. So it really depends. It really depends on how your organization views compliance, and whether you look at compliance as sometimes you want to test the rules, or whether you look at compliance as something that you have to comply with regardless. So unfortunately, I don't have a straight answer for you, but that's my personal view.
Zaharah, would you like to chip in?
Rosliza, if I may trouble you, do you mind to repeat the question for me?
Sure.
Yeah.
So the question is, how does FIMM determine the difference between a distributor's opinion expressed from misleading product promotion?
I have to agree with Shahrin. There's no specific answer to this. However, I would like to share that in the event, if the consultants would like to share any information with, regardless, prospect, existing client or investors, or even family and friends, if the information is for public consumption, there is no restriction, or there is no, so to speak, barriers for them to share, because it is a public consumption. So merely sharing of information. Nonetheless, when consultant act as a advisor to provide the necessary guidance, with the intention, with the intentions to lure the recipient to invest or participate, then this is something which is critical, of which if the consultant is well certified, then the person will not have any problem. First and foremost, the consultant usually they will have to go to, like I mentioned, the necessary product training, to understand a bit more about the product. And there will be some form of guidance, materials, as well as script provided by the distribution unit. So I think that is safe to say that a certified consultant should be able to address this. However, as we discussed earlier, in the event if the person is not certified, best is not to provide any opinion with regards to the product itself, product or services.
That's very true. Well, if you're not qualified, well, better stay silent. Okay. All right. So let's move on to the next question. Perhaps this question is for Ava. It says, did FIMM assess the impact of action taken by distributors on the number of misconduct by consultants, I guess,
Okay, thank you. I guess it's from another anonymous, is it?
Yes, it is from
anonymous. Okay, I mentioned earlier, we do assess the actions, and then we do look at the trends. I mean, what particularly we want to ensure that it's not recurring in nature. And I mean, as I say, it's a collaborative action with steps taken with the distributors. So we do look at the trends as well.
Okay, so last question because we are reaching the end, with regard to the timing. To whom and how can the public reach out if they would like to report a misappropriate posting in social media by individuals regarding unit trust? Well, I guess this one Ava would have said, we have FIMM, right? Yeah, would you agree? Yes. So unless you want to add, a few more points on this.
Sorry, can you repeat the question again?
Yeah, the question is, to whom and how can public reach out to, if they want to report basically any misappropriation or any misleading that they found, from the social media platform.
Okay. You see, if it's about the distributor as well, so you lodge to them. But it's with the consultants, you can lodge it to us. But if it's non-consultant, you can lodge it to the SC as well. because it falls under the carrying out regulated activities without registration or license. But I mean, you could also drop us an email and highlight what is it's been seen. So I would answer the question.
Yeah. If it's in relation to unit trust or private retirement scheme, you could always lodge a complaint, which I think yesterday the speaker already gave a couple of relevant websites, in relation to specific scope of products, which a regulator that you can actually approach to. Now, I think, okay, that concludes on the question. Well, we have covered at great length on this social media, ranging from FIMM's experience in social media surveillance to industry sales practices. We also touch upon the ethical values versus profit-driven motivation for leveraging on social media. We also explored on some of the best practices in the industry that they could consider when using a social media platform for marketing purposes, or even when they engage on social media influencer. Before we end this session, may I invite my panelists to give one punchy key takeaways that all the audience should remember after they leave our session. So maybe we'll start with Ava.
Thank you. Okay, punchy key takeaways. I mean, I'm sure you heard of it. If it's too good to be true, then it may indeed be too good to be true. And as for consultants, do conduct your marketing activities ethically, regardless if through face-to-face or via social media. Please follow our applicable regulations.
So if anything too good to be true, most likely it is. And for consultants, conduct your behavior ethically. Okay, how about Zaharah? Any one punchy key takeaways?
Okay, I have a couple of messages. Well, the first one to the consultants. I wish to remind that I wish to remind all that trust is earned and not given. Yeah. Hence, it is important to understand the investor's requirements prior to any executions. Avoid product pushing and always keep the investors updated regardless of market performance. Yeah. And to all the new and existing investors, I would encourage to stay vigilant or be vigilant. If you are not sure about the information that you have obtained or received, please verify with the regulators such as FIMM, Securities Commission, or the asset management company itself. Alternatively, you can call the bank to find out more. Thank you.
All right. Trust and avoid product pushing. Now, how about you, Shahrin? Short one, short and sweet.
Okay, for me, for the distributors, for the fund management companies, social media marketing is the future. That's the only way for you to basically attract or even reach to the new generations of millennials. For investors, please be careful. Please be cautious when you look at social media. Do your due diligence. And for compliance officers, good luck. It'll be tough in the future.
Okay, thank you very much, all my panelists. Excellent key points, everyone. Well, since we have a pantun yesterday as the closing remark, allow me to give a quote from one of the richest men on earth, none other, Mr. Jeff Bezos, the founder and executive chairman of Amazon. This is actually what he said. If you make customers unhappy in the physical world, they might tell 6 other friends. If you make customers unhappy on the internet, they can each tell 6,000 other friends. So can you imagine the effect of multiplier and the connectivity through social media? Because remember, whatever that you said on social media, it actually will leave a footprint. And the impact is actually humongous. There are a lot of multipliers and the connectivity. So, as what have been mentioned by all my colleagues or my panelists, use the social media responsibly. Yeah. Okay. With that, and also don't be part of the statistic, from being catched by our RoboCops here. So when you use it responsibly, inshallah, you will be on the right track. So with that, I conclude our session, and thank you to all my panelists and the audience that have been with us for the last 1.5 hours. Thank you for your time. stay safe, and see you next year. Bye.